Wow, finally. Did you know that Token Terminal recently announced a data partnership with Cardano? And I'm not joking, they recently posted that, and this is really impressive in my opinion. And I'll explain why in today's video and how I think this goes far beyond the short, medium term. This goes actually to the long term. But again, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, the reason why this is so special is because we have to consider Token Terminal. What is that? It's basically a data platform that turns raw blockchain data into standardized and usage metrics. Why is this a big deal? Because let me just contrast this a little bit to something called the Bloomberg terminal, right? I'm pretty sure everyone's heard about that, or at least just heard about Bloomberg in general. But even besides that point, we have to consider the Bloomberg terminal. A lot of institutions do use that. They primarily sometimes use it for stocks, bonds, ETFs, commodities, currencies, and stuff like that. Basically, what that does is that it takes all this raw data from all these places, and then it kind of compartmentalizes it and allows the user to actually better digest what they're looking at. And Token Terminal is something like that, but for this space, right? For kind of like the blockchain space, basically. And if they have a data partnership with Cardano, this is really fantastic, because I've done the liberty to do a little bit of research, and I found how when it comes to the Bloomberg terminal, it's covering basically over 100 blockchains, over 1,000 apps, and over 3,000 assets that are tokenized. So this is pretty impressive in my opinion. What this could do is give Cardano better exposure, because let's just let this sink in. If, let's say, an enterprise looks at something like Cardano, if they take a look at the data when it comes to it, sometimes it's not as easily digestible, right? Like if we just take a look at raw data, for instance, how do we compartmentalize it if we're not really in tune with the space? So what Token Terminal does is that, again, it makes it into these sections and stuff like that, makes it into actual standardized and usage metrics that makes it more digestible for an enterprise to see and just makes it easier to understand. So this right here could allow enterprises to understand Cardano better, which could lead to better partnerships, better adoption, and also on top of that, better notoriety when it comes to Cardano, because maybe some enterprises look at that and they can introduce the concept of Cardano to other people, right? Other enterprises out there. So this is a major victory in my opinion. People sometimes like to say, oh, it doesn't really matter. Well, it really does matter, I think, because imagine, right? Let's say I was looking at metrics when it comes to the weather. Now, if I just take a look at the raw data, I'm not really going to understand what it all means, because how can I? I'm not in tune with that space, right? But if there's like a platform that kind of compartmentalizes the data and shows me, oh, this data means this data means that, and kind of makes it a lot more simple and easy, then it's going to be far easier for me to actually understand that. And basically, Token Terminal is kind of doing that when it comes to the blockchain space in this case, and Cardano having a partnership with that, that's a big thumbs up for me. It's really legendary stuff right here. So when people like to say, oh, but ADA, Cardano's native token, it's around 16 cents as of right now. That is true. But it doesn't necessarily, I guess, diminish the importance of that partnership, because let's keep in mind, this partnership right here, it goes far beyond, again, like I mentioned earlier on in this video, the short or medium term. This goes to the long term, because sure, ADA could have a pullback and stuff like this, but as of right now, it may be a big deal, but in a couple months' time, no one's really going to care about this. What wins in the long term, usually when it comes to this space, is good adoption, good notoriety, and amazing fundamentals. That's the thing. Short term, I guess, fear when it comes to a project, that comes and goes. You know what I mean? Take a look at Luna back then. Luna, when it had that crash, sure, it was a big deal at the time, but now some people love Luna Classic. That's the thing. So people sometimes within this space, they have a short memory in a sense where they don't really dwell on the past too much, in my opinion. What's worse, the Luna crash or ADA being at below 20 cents? Of course, what happened to Luna, but people even don't really care about that anymore. You know what I mean? So this right here, in like a couple months' time, in a year's time, 2 years, or if let's say there's an altcoin season, this type of stuff won't really matter, at least in my perspective. But even besides that, did you know that less than 24 hours ago, something called MSB Intel actually reported how Cardano founder says, and I quote, he said that if you want someone to make ADA go back to all-time highs, I'm not your person. So Charles Hoskinson, who not only is the co-founder of Ethereum, but the founder of Cardano, he said that. This got a lot of people kind of alarmed because they're saying, whoa, the founder of the project is saying that? That means he has no control over Cardano. And I even went a little bit into this in one of my previous videos, but some people out there are kind of alarmed that the founder of Cardano is saying that, oh, if you want ADA to go back to all-time highs, you got to look for someone else, not him. Why is that a bad thing, though? First of all, it does indicate that Cardano is indeed, hypothetically, decentralized because the founder can't even control it in any significant way, which is a big bonus for me because if I think about it, why would a founder of a project having so much control be a good thing? It's actually not such a good thing. The whole point for me to be in this space is to care about decentralization, right? In some cases, some people might say that. And I would arguably say that if a founder basically admits that the project is very decentralized, that is a good thing. That's what people want to look for. Being upset, annoyed, or angry at Charles Hoskinson for saying that he has no control over Cardano, that right there is the equivalent of going to Coachella and being upset that Justin Bieber is dancing. Well, what else did you expect? It's Justin Bieber at Coachella. Of course he's going to be dancing on stage. You know what I mean? It's like also imagine running a marathon and being upset that it's taking a long time. Well, yeah, it's a marathon. So it doesn't make sense, right? Being upset that Charles Hoskinson has no control over Cardano, I just don't get it. It kind of makes no sense to me. If anything, I think it kind of showcases that Charles Hoskinson did confirm that, you know what? He is a person who doesn't have much control over Cardano, which I think is a big thumbs up because that's not a bad thing. But for whatever reason, that caused ADA to go to below 20 cents. That wasn't the only cause though, because of course the market isn't doing the best and Bitcoin is below 70 grand. I get all that. But, you know, Charles Hoskinson making those comments definitely did not help, right? It kind of made it worse. Like it amplified it in a negative direction, which again, I don't think is a bad thing. I don't find it to be such a big deal. If anything, I don't mind low prices. You know, if I walked inside Costco or Best Buy and I saw a discount, I would not complain. That's the thing. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm only dollar cost averaging once a month, basically. And that's kind of it. I'm just holding. I will never be able to know when exactly the market could recover, but I'm not focused on timing the market. I'm focused on time inside the market. I think Warren Buffett said something along those lines, if I'm not mistaken, you know, at one point, right? So that's kind of the concept that I have. I'm more so focused on years. I'm willing to wait for years. I'm willing to wait and just hold, basically. And I'm not in a hurry. That's the thing. What do I have to be in a hurry for? Whether I'm holding or I'm not, I'm still going to have to make it through this year, the year after that, and so on, right? I'm still going to continue on with my journey in 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, and so on. So holding for me is a background activity. It doesn't require me to have all this extra effort to, you know, care about what happens every 5 or 10 minutes. I'm not a trader. I'm just holding and waiting. You know, seeing the price, if anything, being this low, I don't mind because back in December of last year, it was at around $1. If anything, we're over 5 times lower than $1. I have zero complaints when it comes to that. Because if it just goes back to that, it already feels like an altcoin season to me. It wouldn't be, but it would feel like one to me because one thing I do know for sure, though, is that Bitcoin is not 5 times lower than its all-time high. It just isn't. It's not even 3 times lower than its all-time high. So that's the thing, let alone December 2024. Again, Bitcoin is not 3 times lower than December 2024 or not 5 times lower. It just isn't. But there's something that is over 5 times lower than December 2024, and that's none other than Cardano's native token called ADA, amongst others as well. It's not only this, but I'm just saying there are others, but this is one of them. But I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward, so I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day.